Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Paulina. I make different videos on lifestyle, beauty, and fashion, as well as education and career. And this video in particular is going to be pretty specific. It's about clinical psychology, which is the field I'm currently studying in. And I've gotten a couple of great comments asking more about that, people that are interested specifically in becoming a psychologist or working in clinical psychology. So I thought this would be a wonderful time to go ahead and film this video, kind of giving more detail about the different pieces involved in becoming a clinical psychologist. So if you're interested or curious, please stay tuned as I'm going to go through the different things I wish I would have known before going into the field of clinical psychology. So go ahead and jumping right in. I have notes on very thorough notes on my phone. By the way, I am drinking some coffee. Just to orient everyone, I want to say that there are different pathways to accomplishing a single goal. You know, to become a medical doctor, to become a psychologist, to become a lawyer. There are several ways in which you can go about that, and everyone's journey is different. So I can only speak to my experience, but be as helpful as possible with that. So I just want to say that you know, this is not the only way to go about things by any stretch. Okay, this is a pretty good definition. Clinical psychology is an integration of science, theory, and clinical knowledge for the purpose of understanding, preventing, and relieving psychologically based distress or dysfunction, and to promote subjective well-being and personal development. So, oftentimes what you think of a psychologist is would be considered a clinical psychologist. So they work across different contexts, hospitals, private practice, all that jazz. In regard to becoming a clinical psychologist in the US, you would want to get your bachelor's degree. It doesn't have to be in psychology. Oftentimes it is, but it doesn't have to be. And then oftentimes people get their master's degree in some mental health field and then go ahead and eventually get their doctorate. However, that's not the case for everyone. Some people go from their undergrad straight to their doctorate, and it just depends on the program, your goals, and all of that. And there are different types of doctoral programs, and clinical psychology is not the only type. You have counseling psychology, forensic psychology, and then you could even be in a child psychology program or a geriatric psychology program. So it really depends. And there are two types of broad domains in regard to becoming a psychologist. You have the traditional PhD, which is going to be, as of now, my understanding in general at an aggregate is that it's more research focused. So they're going to be higher research expectations of you as a doctoral student. And then they have the PsyD, and a PsyD is going to be still a doctor. They are more clinically focused though. So the focus there is still research involved, and I went to a PsyD program. There is still research involved, but much of the expectation is in your clinical performance and development. One isn't necessarily better than the other, so yeah, it just depends on what your focus is. And I've encountered people that actually went from one type of program to another because of their difference in interests. Like, some people were in PsyD programs for like a year or so, and they were like, I don't know if this is for me. And then they went to PhD and vice versa. Overall, what I think is important to realize is that getting your doctorate involves a lot of work and sacrifice. And I know that sounds very intimidating, but it's definitely worth it. And for me personally, I can easily justify the work and sacrifice because for me as a person who wants to help people, and that's the gratifying piece of all this, of what I do, I knew that it would be hard for me to make a decent income and career with just a high school degree or a college degree. And so I was either my option was, okay, I could either just work a job that is pretty, like, I won't make much money and there's probably not much space for growth, or I can invest more time and energy into my education, and then I will be a doctor and I will be making more money and I will have a solid career. So to me, it was a very clear, like, hey, you know what? It's worth it to me. I'm gonna do it. So I hope that made sense, and that's why I chose, early on, I knew I wanted to become a psychologist. So it's a lot of work and sacrifice, and we have to think of not just a time commitment of education, but also money, because it's money, it's a time in your life where you're not going to be making as much money, if you are going to be making money, and it costs money to live, so you're going to be spending money, and you're not going to be working, so that's just something to be aware of. But with delayed gratification, you could be making more money than you would have from before. So to me, it's worth it. Long hours, it's a grind, and it's very mentally draining. And you want to be prepared to relocate. It's not just as simple, for the most part, it's not just as simple as like, okay, I'm just gonna be able to stay in one area. Granted, if you're in a major city like DC, New York, Boston, Philly, whatever, I'm just naming a few, you might be able to stay. But for the most part, I know a lot of people that relocate, because not only are you trying to find a master's program that aligns with your interests, but after that, and whatever work experience you get, you go to a doctoral program. And then after that, you're gonna apply for internship, and that's a whole broad, not everywhere has psychology doctoral internships that you need to graduate. So oftentimes people are relocating. And so that's something to be aware of, not just for yourself, but if you're in a serious relationship or family influences, you have kids and stuff, that's something to be aware of. And there's just a lot of hoops to jump through. Just to give you a sense of what I've done, so I'm going to speak to a question I received in regards to what kind of internships and experiences did I accrue in order to be competitive for my doctorate, because it is an application process to go into a doctoral program and not everyone can get in. So I got my undergraduate degree, a bachelor's of science in psychology, and I also minored in criminology. I was very much interested in the forensic aspect of psychology. As I was working on my bachelor's, I did work in research labs under, a psychology research lab for about a year. And, that was free work. A lot of this is free work. So I was going to school, getting my bachelor's degree. I was interning a couple days a week to gain that research experience. And then I was also working on the side to make money to survive. So, and I was working retail. Then after that, I ended up working, so I had that research experience, and I was also volunteering as a mentor for kids in the juvenile justice system, and that were in foster care and group homes. So to me, what I was thinking, my whole goal overall was like, how do I look competitive for, if I was someone looking at applications for a master's program, what would I want to see? I would want to see research, and I would want to see the basis for someone who would be good clinically, being able to help people and relate to people. So I did that. So I did the research experience. I volunteered and mentored, and learned how to talk and relate to people more. Then I also I ended up for about a year or so, or more even, working for a clinical psychologist at her private practice. And that's the thing, a lot of people are sort of, it seems like, because I've taught psychology courses, and I've been able to talk to students who want advice, and it seems to me that a lot of people sort of want opportunities to fall into their lap, and that's not how things work usually. It can work that way, but for me, I believe in like cultivating opportunities. Like you're offering a free service. Why not see who would be interested? And some of them might even pay you, and that's happened. So for me, like, okay, if you're interested in working in, I don't know, forensic psychology. Okay, have you tried reaching out to the local jails or police departments to see if you could help be a volunteer to help either support victims as things occur? You know what I mean? It's just like, there's just so many different ways that you can be innovative. And like, I reached out to someone who had a private practice. I literally went on like Psychology Today and looked up psychologists, and I reached out and asked a few, like I reached out a few at a time, you know, every week, like introducing myself and saying I'm interested in becoming a clinical psychologist and would love to work with you if it's possible, if you need help. So, and someone who was such a wonderful fit, I love her, she's definitely still a mentor to me today, she responded and was like, sure, come and let's chat, let's have an interview. So to me, I think that's really important. You want to be able to make yourself look competitive, well-rounded, and make yourself some opportunities. It's really not that hard. I think people just need to be a little more creative. As I was still actually finishing up my bachelor's, I was studying for my GREs. So I studied for my GREs and ended up taking them and applying to master's programs. I ended up going to a master's program specifically in forensic psychology, which was wonderful. I interned with the clinical psychologist at a private practice, like from after I graduated through like the start of my master's. And then once I finished that, I started working. You know, a lot of master's programs are flexible to working professionals. So some classmates of mine in my master's were full-time students, others were not, and like me. And so what I did was, I was able to still graduate in 2 years, but it was 2 years year-round instead of having long summers off. And you know, those summer sessions were pretty intense. I do want to say that. So what I did was, I worked for about, I would say like a year and a half, and I worked for, I did social work. I was working for the government and helping homeless populations and helping them find housing and regain their stability. So I was working full time, and then for practicum, well, like I had to do an experience, you know, practicum experience through my master's. I actually worked in the local jails, and I helped support inmates in their re-entry to society, which, if those of you are interested in criminal justice and forensic work, that's very sensitive, because our criminal justice system, there's a lot of issues with re-entry, which ultimately leads them back, you know, into the system, and really being lifelong inmates, which is really unfortunate. For me, I didn't necessarily have to have years of just pure professional experience. Like, I've always able to multitask and have you know, different things going on, where I was working and going to school, or interning and going to school, where then I was actually able to enter my doctoral program like not even a month after I graduated from my master's. So while I was towards the end of my master's, I applied for my doctoral program and interviewed and was able to get in. So for some people, they, enter their doctoral training in their, you could be 50 years old and do it. And I know people like that. But for me, I literally went back to back. So I did my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate, right, pretty much back to back. But I have a lot of work experience that I built in. And honestly, as I talk about it, I'm like, how did I manage all that? But I'm definitely someone that I was used to being busy. And it really worked out for me though, because I'm able to graduate and become a psychologist pretty early in my life, which I'm really happy about. Another thing that people should know when they come into this field is that you should be prepared to look inward. And I say that meaning, if we're going to understand the human experience and help heal wounds, we should be able to look inward and do that within ourselves, or be open to processing what's been going on for us and who we are and why we are the way we are. So I don't know if all programs, all doctoral trainings are like that, but oftentimes you should be ready to look, reflect on your own experiences and who you are. I couldn't imagine being an effective clinician without that piece. I don't even know if I'm on a point C of things to know, or D at this point. But there is an emphasis on reading and communication, specifically oral communication and writing. You write a lot and you have to be able to communicate pretty well. Again, things that you'll be working on, but and you're going to be reading a lot. It's a lot of reading of different studies and different techniques, and it's also active discussion and verbal exploration, so a huge emphasis on communication. I would encourage you that if you are interested, to reach out to people that are in positions that you want to be in. Yeah, like networking in general, like talking to your psychology professors, talking to, if you have a TA in your classes, or I just feel like you don't be afraid to reach out, because oftentimes people are willing and able to help and give feedback, and they love to I think it's very, I love talking to people that are interested in kind of sharing my thoughts and helping them find their way. So I encourage that. And then lastly, when you look at programs like master's programs or doctoral programs, I encourage you to look at how they're structured, their approach, and find one that aligns with you and your interests. So consider things like their theoretical approach, their training philosophy, their balance between research and clinical expectations and training. And when I say clinical, not just therapy and the various modalities, but also assessment, if that's something you're interested in. And then also, if there's an age focus, if you want to work with children, geriatric, adults, or across the lifespan, these are all things to consider when looking at programs. And some of them are across the lifespan, so you don't even have to worry about choosing unless you already know what you want to do. And then also looking at faculty's research interests. I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it was helpful for whoever is, the audience that is interested in this. And I'm going to go ahead and have a part 2 to this video, where I'm going to talk about specifically answering some questions about therapy, money, and research interests, and how my internship is going. So that's going to be my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.